What is a limited company? What are its advantages and disadvantages? Well, let's use an example. This is Leon and Susie. They're planning to set up an upmarket florist together. They'll be company directors and shareholders. To start their business, they need £500,000 capital. They only have 400,000, £200,000 each, but the banks seem reluctant to lend them the extra 100,000 they need. Luckily, Zach has agreed to put in £100,000 in return for company shares. Zach will just be a shareholder, not a director, as he's a retired businessman who's just looking to build up his capital, not run a florist. In a limited company, ownership and control, or management if you like, are in the hands of different people. Shareholders are the owners of the company. They hold share certificates in return for the money they've invested. The actual management of the business is the responsibility of company directors. Directors are not necessarily shareholders, but in a very small company like this, directors and shareholders are likely to be the same people. That is allowed. Don't worry about the difference between private and public limited companies right now. You need to understand this, but I'm confining myself to private limited companies here. What is limited liability? Whichever type of company we're talking about, shareholders have limited liability for debts. What exactly does this mean, though? Technically, companies are separate legal persons. So, for example, employees of a company are employed by the company. Debts are owed or owing to the company. By the way, this is not how it works in an ordinary partnership, where the law sees no difference between the private and personal assets and debts of the partners. Our example startup company issues shares, as we know, totaling 500,000. That's the money needed to set the business up. The three shareholders, Leon, Susie and Zach, have taken a chance and invested their capital to set up the business. In what way have shareholders taken a chance? To understand the answer to this question, you need to realize that lots of businesses, especially new businesses, end up trading at a loss. Nobody can be sure of making a profit. That is the central risk involved in all business activity. To survive, most loss-making businesses need to borrow money, maybe from banks as an overdraft or a loan, or suppliers by buying stock on credit. Ultimately, losses can only carry on for so long. Creditors, such as banks and suppliers, will run out of patience eventually and force the business into liquidation through a court order. This means that the business is wound up. Vehicles or business property, things like that, that were all bought with share capital are sold to raise cash to pay back creditors. The outside shareholder in our example, Zach, knows that the most he can lose if things go badly wrong is £100,000. This applies even if the total owed to company creditors is far more. Remember, the debts belong to the company, not the shareholders. Each shareholder stands to lose an amount equivalent to the value of the shares they hold, but no more than that. Shareholders may lose what they paid for their shares, but their other assets, such as their own houses, are not usually at risk. Shareholders can see the limit of their risk. The creditors, those who are owed money, such as suppliers, will have to bear the brunt of the financial risk. You might be wondering how Zach benefits from buying share certificates. The answer is that shareholders stand to receive a share of any profits, known as dividends. Those dividends correspond to the number of company shares owned by each shareholder. So, what are the advantages of being a private limited company? Advantage 1. Compared to a sole trader or partnership, a private limited company is better for attracting investment. Entrepreneurs like Leon and Susie have a fair chance of persuading outside investors like Zach to buy shares in their company. You might say, why not just keep things simple and make Zach a partner? Someone who becomes a partner without being actively involved in the running of the partnership, what is known as a sleeping partner, might well worry about what he or she stands to lose if the business fails. Advantage 2. In a private company, shareholders accept that their money is basically in the business for the long term. This is not something that can be said of a bank loan. If the bank decides that a business is performing badly, it may suddenly demand repayment of the loan. Advantage 3. Although outside shareholders like Zach will expect a profit share at some point, this can wait until there's a decent profit to share out. Banks, on the other hand, expect interest payments to be made regardless of profit levels. What are the disadvantages of being a private limited company? Disadvantage 1. There can be conflict between shareholders and directors. For example, Zach may expect dividends to be paid when Leon and Susie would rather plough profits back into the business. Disadvantage 2. Creating a company involves the creation of certain legal documents, and these have to be updated. This leads to a fair amount of time-consuming work. Disadvantage 3. Not only do companies have to produce more complicated accounts than partnerships, but their accounts are open to public scrutiny. Leon and Susie would not always be able to keep their financial affairs completely private. So, I hope this Learn Loads material helps you to understand limited companies. You might want to have a go at these questions to get you thinking. Question 1. Why might some entrepreneurs prefer not to own their business as a limited company? Question 2. Suppose Leon and Susie's business quickly becomes highly profitable. Why might they have preferred to use a bank loan instead of involving Zach? And question 3. Shareholders influence the direction a company is taking through votes at annual general shareholder meetings. Should this be of much concern to Leon and Susie? Oh, just before you go, if you need to learn loads more, click on the link here to find out about our ebooks or visit the Learn Loads YouTube channel. Thanks a lot. Bye.